Hello, we've been working on this Philips VR2324 V2000 format video recorder and we've made a lot of progress. So next we need to do some reassembly and testing, and if that goes well I'd like to see if we can add a remote control option to this machine as well. Right, let's get stuck in. So we have the deck which we think is working, but we need to refit the screening cabinet work around there, and there's also these horrible wires which go to the top, and there's screening can around here, and we need to test it. And it's a bit debatable, should I test it before I fit all the screening cans? Well, I don't know. Let's just get the deck out again. Okay, first thing, let's check that it still mechanically runs when I power it up. That looks good. I was a bit confused the other day when I said, strangely, it seems to go into the play mode even when there's no tape in there. But it does say CAS on here, which means that it is understanding that there's no cassette in there, and it appears that that is normal behavior. So if I press play, it will lace up and attempt to run even though there's no tape in there. Let's just prove that. That looks normal, even though it says CAS here. Stop, unlace. Let's try rewind. Okay, both spools run because this one's providing drive, this one's providing back tension. The same will apply then to fast forward. That all looks sensible. Let's put a tape in there and make sure it's still happy. Right, press play now. Oh, it shut down. That's not supposed to happen. Why was that? Let's try fast forward. Right, and the display is winding forward here. That looks sensible. Stop. Rewind. But play seemed to abort after a few seconds. It's making the right sort of sounds, but shuts down after a few seconds. That's disappointing. Why would that be? Maybe the spools aren't turning properly. Let's have a closer look at those. I don't know if we can see them, but let's have a look. No, the take-up spool wasn't running. Let's try that without a tape in there. So I'm going to press play now. So again, we have back tension from this one, and that's providing the drive. Not a massive amount of torque there though. But there doesn't need to be. What needs to happen is the capstan drives the tape through. Is the pinch roller engaged? No. There's the pinch roller and it's not rotating. So is that not touching the capstan? Or is there some other reason? Is the capstan actually rotating at all? Ah, no capstan rotation. Look, I'm turning it by hand. This should be spinning. So what's happening is, when it has a tape in there, it sees that the take-up spool, in fact both spools are not rotating because the tape is not being drawn through by the capstan. People who don't know video mechanisms believe that the spools drive the tape, but they don't. In most operations, it's the capstan here that drives the tape. So why is the capstan motor not running? Okay, we'll have to investigate that. You'll remember this is the board that I was working on when I had the defective power on reset module. So this is a thick film circuit, and inside there is an IC which apparently had failed, and a replacement one was also duff. So that was over here, and I see I've actually forgotten to solder a couple of the pins, though I'm certain that's not relevant because they will be soldered on the other side. I'll just fix that, and then we'll have to see where the Capstan motor is connected. It's presumably on this board. We will have to look. Just resoldered them. I'll just confirm with my finger there that there's still no Capstan operation in play. Confirmed. Didn't think that was anything to do with it. Right, where does the Capstan connect? Is it even on this board? Okay, here is the Capstan wiring, goes through to this connector here. So when we refit that one, which has got two wires coming from it, we'll have a look at where that connects physically on the board. It's these N2 terminals here which are marked red and blue, and the other two are going to be sense wires. So these N2 here are going to be supply to the Capstan motor. So if I apply a small voltage, just go steady on that, let's see if the motor spins. You have to take my word for it. I'll just put my finger on the top. So I'll set the power supply low voltage. Put my finger on the top there and see if I can feel it spinning as I increase the voltage. Yes, that's spinning, and I've got about 2 volts on it. So the motor itself is fine. So now I'm going to look at the voltage on that motor when I attempt to play a tape. I'm sure it'll be 0, but let's check that. Zero. No voltage on there. So why is it not driving the Capstan motor? Right, we have connections from the Capstan servo motor pins here, and they go down to a module here, and I've confirmed continuity between those points. All they do is go through some inductors. So next thing I'm going to do is look at the module pin 19, which is a supply for that module, and confirm that that is 12 volts. Clearly if it wasn't, then the motor wouldn't run. So right, let's see if we have 12 volts on that module. We did. Let's press play and confirm that we do still. Yes. So it is being powered. There are some other voltages we need to test on this module, on pins 13, 14, 2, so we'll do those. 16 is at 12 volts, that looks right, to 11.9, yes. 15 is low, that's probably why it's not working. That should be 3.7 volts, and that's the input. That'll be our problem, I think. So the driving voltage is wrong. It should be 3.7 volts on pin 15, and that comes from another module. So we'll need to look at module number 1551. So our module number 1551, over here, we need to make some voltage measurements and some AC measurements. So firstly, does it have power? Should be 10.2 volts, I think, on pin 2. So I'll power that up. Pin 1's feedback from the motor that's not working. Pin 2, 10 point something volts, that's correct. I'm particularly interested in the signal that tells it what to do. So we should have a frequency of 350 Hz on pin 12. 350 Hz, that's very good. Looking at that same module, we need to look at the voltage on pin 8. It's supposed to be 0 volts. It's high. Right, well that will stop. That will stop the capstan from spinning. Okay, why is that high? Right, so our problem is that this STC bar, that voltage should be high, switching this transistor 7503 on, which would therefore take this pin 8 of the 1551 module to ground. But that module input on pin 8 is high because the transistor is off, because the STC bar signal is low. Stop capstan signal bar is low. So that's coming from one of these ICs, the 7050 or the 7049. I can't tell which, but I do know both of those pins, pin 31 on the 7050 and pin 36 on the 7049, are indeed connected to the input, this resistor of this transistor. So we need to try to work out which of those ICs is giving us the STC bar signal low. That's going to be quite hard. Okay, I've installed a 10k pull-up resistor on the base, or actually the input to the resistor to the base of this transistor 7503. STC bar have both been isolated from the IC 7513 and 7514. Now I don't know from the may have missed on the diagram, this is another pull down, but let's assume not for a moment. So hopefully the voltage will be high and the transistor will be switched on and the capstan will rotate. If I press play, will the capstan motor spin? Let's see if we can feel the top of it. Still no capstan motor. Alright, so collector 5 volts, base 0.7 volts being pulled up with my resistor, emitter ground. That transistor should be on and it's not. This transistor is right next to that module that I had to change, and maybe something about that is not a coincidence. Well, of course it wasn't a coincidence that the problem I was having was with a transistor that was right next to that module that I had changed to solve the reset problem. So a bit of bad soldering. I had connected 5 volts to the collector of the transistor. So however hard it tried to switch on, it wasn't making much progress because it was trying to dump the entire supply. Oh dear. Right, well at least it shows how logical fault finding will still get you to the problem with these V2000 machines. So I've now reconnected that transistor, I've refitted, put everything back as it was, resoldered the outputs from the ICs. So I'm hoping now we'll be in a position where the deck runs and then I can reassemble the screening, work on it and test it with a tape. So it's just sat in here at the moment, it's still not properly installed. Let's power it up. Eject. So now when we press play, hopefully it will actually play, whereas last time it stopped after a few seconds. Aha, there we see the capstan spinning. The tape counter should move. Sounds like it's running. Although it also sounds like there might be a bit of servo trouble. Just making the occasional odd sound. Oh well, let's connect it to the monitor and see what we get. Right, wish me luck. Switch it on, press play. We have something. But it's not playing well, is it? Do you think it's Capstan trouble? Hit still. Can you hear it? The servos are struggling. We're not getting sound. And it looks like, well, it's difficult to know. Is it Capstan servo trouble or is it DTF trouble? Let's try the picture search. I'm not getting any colour either. Reverse picture search. Oh, we may have got a head clog now as well as whatever other trouble we had. So I would say we definitely have the noises imply to me that the Capstan servo is hunting, but clearly there's more to it than that because the dynamic track following doesn't seem to be working properly either. At times it seems to be almost okay apart from the lack of colour. So that's a little disappointing. I've just put the deck on its side and we've lost picture completely. Maybe I've just clogged the heads. I think I'm going to go for cleaning the video heads. Great care doing this, of course. I'm using proper head cleaner sticks, isopropyl alcohol, and just running the heads round past the stick. If the heads are contaminated, very often you'll see a black line on the head cleaner stick. I'm not seeing that, so I don't think this is the problem. The SCART plug was loose on the back. SCART plugs are hideous things. Might have been part of the problem. I'll dry the head a little bit, then I'll try tape. Okay, let's try it again. Well, we have some sound. Picture freeze frame looks almost normal apart from lack of colour. So I am beginning to think that the problem is in the Capstan servo. Well, having looked at the problem, I think it's DTF. And the DTF is upsetting the servo for the Capstan because, of course, there are no tracking pulses on V2000. It's all connected to the dynamic track following. So, oh dear, we're going to have to go into the dynamic track following circuits. They're complicated and high voltage and scary. So, oh dear. Okay, so this is supposed to be a 12 microsecond period, and you adjust this preset here to get it to 12 microseconds. So it's a little short. I'm getting about 11, so I'll adjust that. So this is the frequency. I'm trying to get this period to 12 microseconds. That's what I've set the cursor up to. So I need to set this period to 12 microseconds. But that adjustment is not giving me enough range. It can go a lot less, but it won't go up to 12. So we appear to have lost all picture and sound now, which may just be that it hit a bad bit of tape and head clogged out. But anyway, that frequency is wrong and it won't adjust in, so there's something else wrong. The voltage on pin 19 is supposed to be 4 volts, and I'm getting 5.9 volts. So that's line 49. That's completely the wrong voltage. Bet that comes from the DTF system. Well, I'm going to have to clean the heads again anyway, so we can get our picture back. And then we'll look at this voltage. I've just left it playing, and maybe it was just a head clog that I hadn't cleared properly, because I think it's coming back. So we need to get back to this problem where this voltage line, this line 49 should be 4 volts, and we're getting about 5.9 volts. So we need to trace where that comes from and try to debug it. Looking at the schematic, we have this 4 volts coming out of an analog switch which is fed from a digital analog converter. Now this is a bit mysterious to me, because I don't understand how it can supply these various signals at different times. I don't know how the timing is set up, that this DAC can provide different voltages to different places when they're needed. But let's just have a look at the output from the DAC, which feeds the analog switch, and make sure that the signals, the supply voltages to the DAC are correct. There's this particular oscilloscope trace we're looking for on pin 13, which is the output. And there's the waveform. I'm not sure that's what's in the service manual. Doesn't look right to me. I'm looking at this pin, which is not the relevant voltage, but it proves that the DAC is working. It says 3.8 volts on pins 1 and 12 in play, yes, and in reverse search it should be down to about 1 volt. Yeah, a little high. And in forward it should be about 6 volts. Again, slightly high, but yes, in the order of things. So that says to me that the DAC is working, but there's something fundamentally wrong with this 4 volt signal. So why is that voltage high, and what's it supposed to do, and how is it derived? Tricky. When it's around about 4 volts it was okay, and that's rising up again, and it'll start to roll again. Seemed after a bit of picture search I could get it to go down. So it's all over the place, that voltage, because after a bit of forward picture search it's low, travels through about the right amount, during which time, coming up any moment, the picture will stop rolling momentarily, and then the voltage continues to rise. Right, it's about the right value now, picture's stable for a while, and then it starts rolling the other way as the voltage rises. So there's nothing wrong with the Capstan servo, it's being told to do what it's doing. I really need to know what the whole loop is here, that 4 volt is generated by the DTF system. Now there's no proof at this point that the 4052 is the cause of this problem. I suspect it probably isn't, but I have one, so let's install it. Now of course it's never easy to install anything on these double-sided boards, but I'm getting the hang of it now with lots of desolder braid and flux. I'm managing to get components off this board, so I've installed an IC socket. And here are the original and the new RS4052 chips. So let's pop that in. So it's very unlikely to have helped, but we'll give this a try. Power up, press play. No, Capstan's still all over the place. You can hear the Capstan hunting. That being the case, I'll probably pop back the original part. I've refitted the original 4052 analog switch in here. It was worth checking that one really, because it could have had a defective output. But I think I've proven that the DAC before that is probably working, because some of the voltages we were getting on one of the other outputs were changing correctly in the different modes. The DAC anyway, the one that's fitted to here, is not the part number that it says in the schematics. The actual one that's in here is a TDA2503, and that seems to be more or less impossible to obtain. There's a mention of it on eBay, but the part that they're selling has got the wrong amount of pins, so they've got the wrong part. The board from the scrap machine has a different IC, again not the same as in the manual or on here, so that's no use. And interestingly, the DAC on here is hiding under another bodge board. So there's a bodge board there and there's a second bodge board here, and you know, there's wires everywhere, and you know, this says to me that the product wasn't ready for release, wasn't it? I think they'd come up with a system here that was too complex, and it hadn't been bedded down properly. I can't imagine any Japanese manufacturer going to volume production with boards like this. Now, I've looked at some very few, there's not a lot of service information, but I looked at a few notes on this in Television Magazine, and someone's saying that you can get erratic behaviour of the DTF if the slip rings are dirty on the top of the head. So I will check that, but given how clean this machine is, I don't think that's the cause. But there is something in there in the DTF circuit that's wrong. If you have any expertise on these machines, please let me know, or if indeed you have that entire panel with the servo and DTF electronics from a scrap machine, please do let me know, because that might either be something I can install or at least get some parts from. Now, I will be working on some other things as well in the future. I've got the STK chip to go in the power supply of the Super Beta, and I've got some other fascinating things to unpack and share with you. So there's lots more going on. Do come by and join me for those things too. Bye for now.